A hearty, cozy dinner doesn't get any better than this classic beef stew. It's our family's favorite, and let me show you how to make it. Hey everybody, I'm Kelly with the Suburban Soapbox, and today we are making my favorite beef stew. It's super simple to make, and you can actually mix it up a little bit on your own with your favorite vegetables or add-ins. So this is what we like to add to our beef stew, but you can definitely add or subtract any of these ingredients. So we start off with a chuck roast or beef stew meat. You can find it at your grocery store. I like to use a chuck roast because it's a little less expensive than buying something that's pre-cut. And then you can cut your beef into like cubes that are 1 inch to 2 inches big, like bite size. Just remember, like when you cook it, it's gonna shrink a little bit, so you don't want tiny little pieces in there. You want some big hearty pieces of meat in your beef stew. And then we also have some celery and carrots and potatoes. And then I have some mushrooms and a little pearl onions, some cornstarch, flour, olive oil, salt, peas, butter, pepper, garlic powder and onion powder, chopped garlic, some Italian seasoning, tomato paste, Worcestershire sauce, and beef stock. It sounds like a lot of ingredients, but it's tons of layers of flavor, so definitely don't skip any of the aromatic ingredients, and you're gonna have the best beef stew ever. So to start our beef stew, we're first going to coat our beef cubes in a little flour mixture, and this helps to get like a nice golden brown sear on your meat. And we want to do that so that you're building some flavor right from the start. So you want to brown your beef in the pan and get all that crusty goodness in the pan. So I have a fork here to whisk everything together, and I have a little bowl of flour, and we're just going to add the garlic powder and the onion powder to this flour mixture and the salt and pepper. And just mix that together. And this is basically creating like a searing powder or something, like if you have ever seen like dredging flour at the supermarket to help get a coating on like meats and vegetables when you're searing them in a pan. So the meat cubes or your chuck roast, if you're cutting it, make sure you're patting it dry with a paper towel. You want to get any moisture off of your meat so that you get that sear. If you have a lot of moisture on the outside of your meat, it's going to make the flour wet, it's just going to get clumpy, and it's not going to sear in your pan. You're just going to end up with like steamed meat, which is never good. Also, when you brown these in your pot, you want to make sure you do it in batches. You don't want to crowd the pan and create a lot of steam in there, because then you're also steaming the meat and you're not getting that crusty goodness on your beef cubes. So we're just gonna sprinkle this flour on our beef. I like to do half and then toss it around. It's also good if you put it in a zip top bag and then just shake it, kind of like shake and bake chicken. Kids like to help make dinner, so that's always a good chore for them. And then if you use just half of this and it looks like all of your beef is coated in the flour mixture, you can save this for the end because we're gonna make a roux. And usually we just do that with cornstarch, but if you have some of that flour left over, you might as well just reuse that as well. And then you're not wasting any ingredients. All right, looks like we have enough flour on everything. So now we're just gonna move over to the stovetop, and this is where the magic happens. So once we move over to the stovetop, we're going to add all of the ingredients to the pot in layers and layers of flavor, and then just let it stew until it's like this amazing, most amazing beef stew ever. To start your beef stew, we're going to heat the oil in a large Dutch oven or a pot over medium-high heat. Make sure your pot is big enough that it's going to hold all of this, because there's a lot of ingredients here. Add half of the stew meat to the pot and brown on all sides. It's gonna take about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. You just wanna make sure that you have a crusty golden brown before you flip it to the other side. Once your stew meat is browned on all sides, use a slotted spoon and transfer the beef cubes to a platter and keep warm. Repeat with the remaining stew and then transfer to the platter. Once your beef is done, add the carrots, onions, and celery to the pot. Cook for 3 to 4 minutes. Stir in the potatoes, mushrooms, and garlic. Continue cooking for an additional 5 minutes until the mushrooms begin to soften. Add the tomato paste and Italian seasoning, stirring to coat the vegetables with the tomato paste, and continue to cook for an additional 2 minutes until the tomato paste begins to darken. Stir in the red wine and cook until reduced. Make sure you scrape up the brown bits on the bottom of the pan because that is amazing flavor. You don't want to miss that. Transfer the beef back to the pot. Add the beef stock, Worcestershire sauce, and peas to the pot. Bring to a boil and then reduce the heat to low. At this point, we're gonna cover and simmer it for 1.5 to 2 hours or until your meat is fork tender. Once your beef stew is almost done, we're going to stir together the butter and the cornstarch until it's smooth. Add the mixture to the beef stew and stir it until the stew begins to thicken. Continue to cook for an additional 10 minutes uncovered until thickened to your preference. And I have another stew that I made ahead of time, so let me show you how we serve it. Our beef stew is ready. I'm just gonna take the lid off, check it out, and give it a little stir. If you like it thicker, you definitely can add more of that butter cornstarch mixture to this, but this is kind of how we like it. We like it a little stewy with a little soupiness to it. So not like totally gravy laden, more like a soup. So at this point, I like to just sprinkle a little parsley just for some added freshness. You can skip this if you are not like a parsley person, but it does add, like, because it's been stewing for a long time, it adds a little bit of freshness to it. And I like to use a lot of parsley in here. I'll just give that a stir. And then I'm going to serve it over some mashed potatoes. And this is like a total stick to your ribs meal. And I have my ladle. Just put some right there on the side. A little beef, some celery, maybe a mushroom. There we go. How does that look? Amazing. So I'm just gonna take a little bite from here. It is so good. It's rich. You can taste that wine reduction, a little buttery. It is definitely the heartiest of winter meals. If you like this recipe, please be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. For more easy recipes, visit thesuburbansoapbox.com. Thanks again.